Are you even connected? That was the question that I found myself being asked when I stepped into the chiropractor's office with the intent of going there to talk to somebody about infertility and polycystic ovarian syndrome. You see, after I found out that I had that diagnosis, I went right to the Googles, which can be a very dangerous place to live. However, I started reading in some forums of these testimonies from women who began going to the chiropractor and they were having babies. And I was like, I don't understand. They weren't giving me very much information. And so I found myself making myself an appointment to the closest to me in the metro area chiropractic's office. So I made an appointment and they had this amazing setup where I could go in there and for a very low and set and affordable rate, I could have an x-ray and I could meet and consult and they could decide if chiropractic care would be for me. So I walked in there and it was a really, tons of people were in there. It was very vibrant. It was a great atmosphere to be in. And I was like, wow, this place is really cool. And in my job, I had been previously working in a hospital in the emergency room. And so the medical field that I was used to was just a different tone. The emergency room is a different place with triage and I'll leave that story for another day. But this chiropractic office was buzzing. It was amazing. It was really a great place to be. And I had an appointment with a man named Dr. Murphy. Dr. Murphy has black hair, curly black hair, and I'll never forget when he walked up to me with this huge grin on his face, shook my hand, and he said, "All right, come on back, Leslie. Let's get you taken care of." And so he introduced me to this girl. This girl sat me down in another room and started asking me all these questions. She was like, okay, do you find you coughing? Do you have any stomach things? What are your favorite activities? What are things that you love to do? What are some of the things that you haven't been able to do? What do you know about chiropractic care? What are the bad things you've ever heard about chiropractic care? She was kind of like pulling the bricks out of my trench coat, so to speak. And she was trying to get me to figure out, do you think I'm going to break your neck? Do you think that chiropractic care is dangerous? Do you think it's voodoo? Do you think it's helpful? And so she was just trying to figure out where I was on the scale. And so I was comfortable. I'd heard of chiropractic. I wasn't familiar with it. I'd only been to a chiropractor once when I had terrible low back pain, and it was so bad that they couldn't actually adjust me. When you're having terrible back pain and your muscles are in spasm, I wasn't being adjusted, because I had never been to one before. So I had never actually been adjusted. And so after I met with this girl, she said, okay, so what brings you in? Why did you want to come here today? And I told her flat out, I said, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome and someone told me that chiropractic could be beneficial and that I want to have a baby. And so I'm here to seek and see if chiropractic would be a great way to have a baby. And so she wrote all this down. She went and talked to Dr. Murphy again, and they also took some x-rays really quickly. And after they drew some lines on my x-rays and I got to meet with the doctor, he sat me down and he said, yep, this is exactly, this could be the very thing and the reason why you're having polycystic ovarian syndrome. And he showed me my x-ray and he showed me my lower spine. He showed me my lower 5, my L1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And he said, right here on your L3, which is a technical term from your chiropractor, which you'll learn if you've never been to one, right on your L3, you have a subluxation, which sounded like terrible. Am I going to die? No, I'm not going to die. A subluxation is when your bones move and they just get stuck. They are meant to move, but they're meant to be mobile. Your bones, if this was a vertebrae and this was a vertebrae, you're meant to move backwards and forwards and side to side. And when you're active, you play sports or you do anything like that, you could have a fall, you could trip over anything. If you fall, sometimes your bone can get out of alignment and get stuck there. And when it gets stuck over time, that's where your muscles can start to have inflammation. But he said to me something really interesting that I did not know. He said, well, your nerve, right where you have a subluxation, your nerve is being touched. He said, when you have a pinched nerve, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll feel it, but you'll start to have symptoms because those nerves run directly to your reproductive organs. He said it's kind of like if you plugged in your mouse. Remember those days when you had a mouse that like plugs into your computer? It's not wireless, but when it has a wire, he said it's like being plugged into the computer, but there's a short in it. It's like you thought it was plugged in, but someone clipped the cord and you couldn't see it, and you're wondering why your mouse wasn't working. He said it's because there's been a disconnect from the brain to that particular area. All that to be said, he looked right at me and he said, if you come into the clinic and you follow my protocols, come in here, 2 to 3 times a week for the next 4 weeks, and then we'll write you up an entire plan. He's like, I know you can get pregnant. And that was the first time I walked out of one doctor's office with a curse, with this diagnosis of I would never have children, to this amazing doctor who was confident. He was like, you're going to get pregnant. You're going to get your cycle back. We're going to get this right. And then came the whole, what am I going to do? How to afford this? Well, it just so happened that they were looking to hire someone within their clinic for the same job that girl was doing with me, where she was talking to me, taking notes and talking directly to the doctor and doing x-rays. They were looking to hire somebody for that position. And they said, well, do you need a job? Because you're funny and you might be good at this, and you get your chiropractic for free. And I was like, when is the interview? So it ended up being that I actually worked for this clinic. That is right, I worked for this clinic. So let's talk about your spine, and I want to show you how this works. Now, if you go over to my website, above or below, wherever this video is, probably below, you're going to see a chart of a spine. And my light is pretty bright here. But your spine, okay, looks like this. This is the 5 lower lumbar that I was talking about. You have 5 vertebrae that are stacked on top of each other with a disc in between that is spongy, and it keeps the bones from touching. Now, I want you to actually see this, because my question is, are you even connected? What happens is when your bones are movable like this, which this model doesn't actually move, these are the nerves that run in between your spine, which connect to your different parts of the body. You will notice, or different organs of the body, you will notice over on the chart below, all the nerves that run to different parts of your body are responsible for different functions. So like, let's say you're somebody who has earaches often. You might actually have a vertebrae that's just out of alignment a little bit, and it's touching on that nerve, and there's inflammation, and the connection between the ear portion to your brain just needs to be lightened up, and then you won't have earaches anymore. I saw this many times as somebody who worked in the chiropractic office after I was hired. I saw this over and over and over again, that when people came in for regular visits, at first they came in for a couple times a week, and then it tapered down to a couple times every 2 weeks. And then it tapered down to, once or twice a month for maintenance. But we saw testimony after testimony after testimony of people who had things like heartburn, no longer had heartburn because they had their spine adjusted and the spine got off of that nerve. For me, I started having regular adjustments, and my L3, which was out of alignment, came into alignment. And guess what? Just 2 weeks after having a couple adjustments a week, I had my cycle. I got my period back. And guess what? It came every 32 days. I love her. Every 32 days, my cycle came back, and I was regular from there on out. Chiropractic had literally taken me from not having a cycle for 2 to 3 years to all of a sudden having a cycle, and it was regular, and it was incredible. So if you are somebody who has not tried chiropractic care, I cannot recommend it enough, especially ones that have a quick x-ray where you can see your lower lumbar and they can go over it with you. And then if you're like me and you can't afford it, maybe ask them if they're hiring, because free chiropractic is a perk. And you can go and teach other people about the spine. But definitely take a look, because you never know where the source of your your infertility is coming from. And this is a really non-invasive and effective way to get your organs communicating and firing with your brain, which is what needs to be happening in order to be regular and have cycles and things like that. After having such tremendous results at the chiropractor, and I got my cycle back, what I noticed was now I was having 34, 36, 38 day long cycles, and the OBGYN was still telling me that that was not normal, that I still had some issues going on, which led me to the next part of my fertility journey, which is taking charge of my fertility, getting in tune with my body and figuring out, when is my body even ovulating? Am I even ovulating? How long is a cycle really going to be? Which leads us to our next video. I'm going to share with you exactly how to determine whether or not you're ovulating, and if you are, when you're ovulating. And I want to speak so much hope over you that every woman's cycle is different. 28 days is just a suggestion, okay? So if you are somebody who, like me, was having 35-day long cycles and yet you were still having cycles, does that mean you're infertile? Does it mean you're not fertile? That's the same thing. What does it mean exactly? So next video is talking about getting in tune with your body. I can't wait to show you how to do this. It is so simple, especially when you keep it simple and you don't stress over it. Conclusion to my story about using chiropractic care. Let's just say I had a cycle every single month for 3 months, and then I didn't have a cycle for, I don't know, it was a lot of weeks. And I thought, because I hadn't gone to the chiropractor in a few, that I was infertile again. Come to find out, I was actually pregnant. I didn't know, but I was 14 weeks pregnant when I found out I was pregnant with my first baby, because I just assumed that when I stopped chiropractic care that my cycles would go away. But that's not true. I'll never, ever, ever forget exactly how Dr. Murphy made me feel. Find a doctor who is confident and who will speak life over you and is willing to break curses over you that have been spoken to you somewhere else. Know that all things are possible, even pregnancy, through chiropractic. Who would have thought? Are you even connected? Go search places in your area that have chiropractic services. Ask your friends who is recommended, but I cannot recommend this avenue more because it's non-invasive. It's super affordable. And if you're like me and you need a job and you also need chiropractic care, maybe ask if they're hiring.